Samuel writes, I feel like no matter how bad a movie is, a fight scene has potential to make it enjoyable. What do you guys think is the best fight scene of any movie? My picks are the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight in Star Wars 3, the Superman versus Zod fight in Man of Steel, and the hotel fight scene from Inception.
Mark, what are your favorite fight scenes?
I love this question. When I think of iconic fight scenes, the one that sticks out in my mind is obviously going to be Luke versus Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, because you get their shadow and you just get the red and the blue lightsaber. But if you want to talk about some real fight scenes, let's get down to it. Eventually, history will remember these fight scenes as either PR or AR, which is pre-raid or after raid.
Yes.
Because those movies are just one giant fight scene that are so technically perfect to watch. It's incredible. I'd go all the way back to Enter the Dragon, which is Bruce Lee versus the evil Han. That's a pretty sweet fight scene. Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson versus Gary Busey on the lawn. Crazy versus Crazy. One of my personal favorites is Die Hard, is John McClane versus Alexander Goodenough. When they have that incredible fight scene, the dude with the long blonde hair, and they're just beating the crap out of each other forever. That's one of the ones that I always go back to and watch. It's just a brutal fight scene. Two dudes just clinging to survival. Those are my favorite kinds.
I would add Donnie Yen in Ip Man. And it's actually the guy who trained Bruce Lee, and it's a story about his actual, the origin of the guy who came up with his fighting style and his fight, like in real life against, I believe it's Chinese versus Japanese. It's really crushing, and the fighting styles that they go through. There's group fights, there's individual fights, and I think that movie itself is a beautiful film. I would definitely also say The Raid, and for me, The Raid 2 topped The Raid in that. Not only did it have,
and it was like an extra hour of fight.
It had one of the most incredible fight scenes inside of moving cars that I've ever seen in my life, and it's like so frenetic. I mean, so for me, those are the two that come right.
The prison scene too.
Oh, yeah,
the prison yard
for
Raid 2.
Incredible.
And then speaking of Bruce Lee, the fight that he has with Chuck Norris at the end of Enter the Dragon, which I guess was called,
tears that hair off his chest.
Yeah, which was called Way of the Dragon. The Kill Bill Volume 1 scene with the bride fighting the Crazy 88, Go-Go, Oren Ishii. And then you're speaking of kind of more martial arts films, we have Drunken Master 2 with Jackie Chan.
Drunken Master, thank you for mentioning that, because that end fight with that guy with the one leg that he can just do that. He looks almost like Clark Kent. He's like wearing the glasses and he keeps doing that stuff with his leg. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, the end sequence of Once Upon a Time in China with Jet Li with the ladder sequence is awesome. I'm trying to think of what else.
If you want some movies that aren't great but have some cool fight scenes in them, Safe with Jason Statham might be my favorite Jason Statham actually kicking in a movie scene, even though Jason Statham has been in better movies. Bruce Lee's kid, Brandon Lee, before he was in The Crow, was in a movie that's not great called Rapid Fire.
I remember
There's some really neat fight scenes in Rapid Fire, and because all people love these fight scenes so much, it's ripe to be spoofed, which is done brilliantly on Family Guy when Peter and the chicken fight each other, and they just have these 10-minute breaks where it's just them beating the crap out of each other. That has nothing to do with the rest of the series. It's so funny.
You know what's a fun film? You mentioned Statham, Crank and Crank 2, High Voltage. Watch both of those back to back, and that's like, there's really cool choreographed fight scenes, but just as an action film from beginning to end, I think that's a really fun film.
Bourne Ultimatum, the scene where he's chasing the guy on the rooftop.
Oh my
and
God,
then
they
jumps
jump
through the window.
Oh, through the window? Yes.
And
that's very impactful, too, the way it's shot. Really, every punch you felt. That's a good one, definitely.
Yeah. Sinead, do you have any fight scenes that are memorable to you? That you,
well, I mean, a lot of the movies that you guys just listed, I sadly have not seen. So I have to think like recently. I really like fight scenes that are kind of like cheesy and over the top. So I think of like the ones that almost like you laugh when they're over because you're like, so I think of like Django at the end. And then also, because I like the over the top, like, I don't know, I get really freaked out and it's really intense. I almost like when it's a little like, this is supposed to be absolutely ridiculous. I've seen all the Bourne movies like 54 billion times, so I love all of those. And then I just saw, obviously, like John Wick last year.
Oh, yeah.
I also liked a lot of that stuff because it was, again, like so over the top.
Right, dome shots. It was like Gun Kata or whatever,
Yeah,
from that
it's
Equilibrium
ridiculous.
movie. They were like, bring that back in. That,
Well, over the top movies, Kick-Ass has some great fight
Yeah.
sequences.
Yeah.
One I can't believe I forgot, Terminator 2, the end sequence when the T-1000 fights Sarah Connor and Arnold, the T-800. That's a pretty, I mean, it's James Cameron.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing that didn't happen in that fight scene was somebody's throat getting ripped out. Don't worry, we took care of that in Roadhouse.